For more on this, let's welcome in today's roundtable guest, conservative strategist Jack Burkman. He's also a host of Behind the Curtain. Jack, thanks for being with us again.
My pleasure, John.
All right, so first, before we get on to that whole system being rigged situation, I wanted to get your reaction to the pick of Carly Fiorina by Ted Cruz to be his running mate today.
Oh, I think it's a stroke of genius. It's the best Cruz can do under these circumstances. It achieves a number of things. The main thing it does, you guys know this as well as I do, it recaptures the media cycle for Cruz. He was coming out of a terrible debate. He lost, terrible loss. He lost all the momentum. He's heading into Indiana losing. Hopefully now this can turn things around. The other thing it does is it enables Cruz to hit Trump on his central weakness. His main weakness are women, and Cruz can now say, I'm the Republican candidate who will be popular with women in the fall.
Let's welcome in John, who's calling in from Florida. And John, we can get your reaction to the Carly Fiorina pick. But I wanted to ask you, are you one of those voters who believes that the primary process is rigged?
No, actually, it's set up as it's set up. There's nothing we can do about it as a voter. It's out of our hands.
All right, now let's move on. And what's your question or comment? Do you want to talk about Carly Fiorina?
She's a disaster in the making because of her record with Lucent and Hewlett Packard and shipping jobs overseas and walking out with a golden parachute.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to hit her hard on that, especially Donald Trump. Don't you, Jack?
Yeah, it could be. There's more positive than negative in what Cruz has done. I think I wouldn't have thought of this. See, the big issue is, Miranda, Cruz can't afford to save his ammunition. If he saves this to June or July, it might not mean anything. He might have long since been killed off. He's got to use it now. Cruz is coming down to his last few bullets. If he loses in Indiana, that's probably it. Trump is way ahead in California. Trump would get to, if Trump gets to 1187, we know with Paul Manafort, he can get 50 delegates on the first ballot. I don't think that's an issue. It's really not 1237. He just needs 1187 to win. As for this business, do I think the system is rigged? I think Priebus has really done the party a great, great disservice because it's very clear. I wouldn't say that it's rigged, but it's very clear that the Republican chairman has used the full powers of his office and tried to rally the Washington Republican establishment best he can to block Donald Trump. A sitting chairman should never be involved in that.
But he did say he wasn't going to change the rules anymore.
Well, I think that's a small consolation prize to the Trump supporters. Sandra from Minnesota, who's joining us now. Sandra, how are you?
I'm good. How about you guys?
We're doing great. What would you like to talk about?
Well, I'm a little concerned about Ted Cruz here and his choice, Carly Fiorina, whatever. Anyways, Carly
Fiorina, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that was very good for him to do.
Why not?
Well, back last summer, he did give like a $500,000 donation to her, and everybody thinks it's a bribe. Okay, and now she's collecting on her bribe.
Now, who are you voting for? Who did you vote for in the primaries?
Trump.
Trump. You're a Trump supporter.
Yes, I am.
And do you think that the system is rigged?
I do.
How so?
Well, I guess how I feel about it is okay with the stacking of the delegates. I was in the delegate process up here in Minnesota.
Okay.
And being that I was the first time coming into the system, I was knocked out immediately because I didn't have the knowledge or whatever to be a delegate and to continue on with the process, even though I wanted to learn.
Right.
What they're looking for is people who have been in the system over the course of time.
Yeah, it's one of those situations. It's not on-the-job training. That's kind of we heard John say this from Florida. It's kind of the way the system is designed. Again, it's based on the republic that we live in, not a pure democracy.
Right, but it's hard though because a lot of people have given Donald Trump credit for bringing newbies into the process.
You cannot
one thing.
Go ahead, Jack.
One thing I would just jump in here with one thing. The primary process has been a hard-fought gain in our democratic system. It took both parties 60 years to bring in the primaries. The party elders in both parties from the 40s onward, they didn't want to give up their power. Primaries were something that came in first in the 50s, then the 60s, big time in the 70s, and now today you have a wide open system. For people to do anything like Priebus has done something to move this back in the direction of the smoke-filled room, that's not only a a problem for the Republican Party that could lead to the party's dissolution. It's more serious than that. It's a serious setback for our democratic system, because we have to remember that the primary system is almost like some facet of civil rights. It was very hard fought and hard to win.
Well, I would imagine there are a lot of folks out there like Sandra, and there was a similar story of a woman who was in Florida, was trying to become a delegate and a Trump supporter. They're learning about this process for the first time. I doubt that they will be the same thing will happen to them the second time around. I'm sure they will learn the process. If there's a candidate they want to go back out there and support, they learn. Or hopefully they didn't get turned off by the way things are. There is, I think, some intentional landmines laid to keep people out of the system that aren't going to fall in line with what the party wants. And I think you're right about that, Jack.
And that same poll that you mentioned, the Reuters poll, Reuters Ipsos poll, also talked about the majority of people want to see that system change. Jack, do you think it's possible that we'll see some changes, obviously not this time around, but maybe next time around with some of these primaries?
I think what could happen, the real issue is whether the Republican Party survives the year. I now think with Trump surging, and it's getting pretty clear to me that he'll be 1187 or more, within 50. So if he doesn't have it won by June 7th, he'll win it on the first ballot. I think that's good for the Republican Party, good in the sense that it at least holds it together. I think you get into a very dangerous situation if Trump loses, if the party were to decide that it didn't want Cruz, if they bring in some kind of white knight, you could blow the party apart, and that's where I think the change you're talking about, Miranda, could start to happen. Then you might have three conservative parties. That could force the Democratic Party to explode, because if one bursts, the other one could burst. And then you could get into this very interesting and dynamic time where the chemical solution would have to find a new equilibrium. That could take a number of years.
Yeah, and I think a lot of this depends on what happens in Indiana and California. If Trump is able to eke out a win in Indiana and then go on, carry that inertia through to California, it might be a moot point. We'll see what happens when those votes are taken, though, at the convention in Cleveland. Jack, stick around. More to come with Jack Burkman and your calls right after this. 877 Newsmax. 877 Newsmax. All right, we're welcoming back Jack Burkman, who's rejoining us. And Jack, does it seem somewhat silly to have Ted Cruz talk about the establishment? I mean, he made that deal with Kasich. Now he's picked Carly Fiorina for his running mate.
Not to mention all the offices that he's held.
He's worked for every branch of the federal government.
Well, basically, the argument becomes, to stop all these dirty deals, I have to make a dirty deal of my own. I think that the Kasich-Cruz deal is something that comes when strategists, have sleep deprivation for 72 hours at the peak of a campaign, and all they eat are potato chips and bananas. It's something that looks great on paper, but in practice, it's quite silly. It's created enormous confusion among voters. People in Indiana probably don't know. If you're a Cruz supporter, you have no idea who he wants you to vote for. You don't know if Kasich is on the ballot or not. You don't know what state you're supposed to vote for Cruz in, what state you're supposed to vote for Kasich in. I will tell you this, along the lines of a blind squirrel finds an acorn once in a while. The prediction I made, and most all of mine have been wrong this year, but the prediction I made about
you and everybody
Rubio,
else,
said,
Go ahead.
Well,
Go ahead.
Rubio should have stayed in. He quit way too soon. Imagine if Rubio had stayed in this race, even in fourth place. He surely would have gathered another 100 delegates. Even by doing that, he could have surely forced this to the convention floor. All he had to do was stay in, and if he stayed in and it went to the convention floor, the chairman and the establishment probably would have pushed for him.
All right. Well, let's welcome in Bud from Missouri. Bud, what's your question or comment?
Well, I've been. First of all, let me tell you, I'm a Cruz supporter.
Okay.
But,
Okay.
If Donald Trump is nominated, I will back him 100%. So I'm all for whoever's fighting against Hillary. But
Well, as a Cruz supporter, what did you think today of his announcement in Indianapolis?
I was really happy that he chose Fiorina for the obvious reasons. The ladies are going to sort of swing in his direction, in the direction of Republicans. Carly can take on Hillary like Cruz can't. But what I wanted to comment on. Oh, wait a minute! You're talking, and I don't have the sound on the TV, but
No, that's okay. Can you hear us, Bud?
now I can hear you. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Here's the deal. Somebody came on and talking about Carly taking Hewlett-Packard into bankruptcy. Well, Carly was there when it happened, but if Trump brings that up, he's 4-1 against her. So, that's an arguable point.
Well, the Democrats are already bringing it up. They have already started to hit Carly Fiorina. Donald Trump's campaign tweeting out today some of the Carly's own words that she has used in the past against Ted Cruz, saying that Ted Cruz will do anything to get elected and say anything to get elected. So, Bud, does this make you more excited about Ted Cruz? You said you would support Donald Trump if he's the nominee. Do you think there is going to be new excitement behind Ted Cruz beyond today? I guess we lost Bud.
He was so excited he had to go. And that's basically what happened. It happens to all of us, right?
All right.
Jack Burkman, thank you so much for joining us. And it was such a pleasure to actually see you in person the other day. Don't be a stranger.
I loved it. Thank you. Pleasure mine.
All right. You've heard from some of our guests from today, but we still want to hear from you. Give us a call, 877-NEWSMAX. Again, the number is 877-NEWSMAX. 877-639-7629. If you're standing by, we'll get to your calls shortly. We'll be right back.